The NBA made its triumphant return to NBC this season, and who did Universal bring in to really start it off with a bang? Who did they bring in to engage all audiences? They brought in the GOAT, also known as Michael Jordan. They teased Michael Jordan appearing up and down the bill to get people tuned in, to get people watching. Now, February 1st, they're rolling something else out. Basketball Night in America. Well, Michael Jordan, he already fulfilled his duties. He already took care of his commitments. He already reached all requirements on the contract. So who do they need to go get? Well, the next best thing, I suppose. Caitlin Clark.
ESPN fans, listen carefully because this move just changed the balance of power in women's basketball. Caitlin Clark just joined NBC's NBA studio panel. Not as a random guest, not as a one-time cameo. A real on-air role placed right next to NBA legends in prime time during the exact window when the WNBA Players Union is preparing for a CBA fight that could threaten the 2026 season.
Now, similarly, they've created some buzz with Caitlin Clark, who was announced as a special contributor for the broadcast also. She will be joining the crew there. You see Maria Taylor, Carmelo Anthony, Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady. And CC will be making her TV analyst debut.
Stay with me, because at the end, I'm going to show you the single line in NBC's announcement that tells you how they plan to market Caitlin going forward, and why that one line quietly pressures every negotiation inside the WNBA.
Caitlin Clark has landed herself a new, very high-profile position, and I've been wondering when this was going to happen. I knew at some point, somewhere, with some miscellaneous media outlet, Caitlin Clark would get a gig, and now we know where that gig's going to be, when that gig's going to be, and who that gig's going to be for.
Here's the context. The WNBA is heading toward the end of its current collective bargaining agreement, and players have already signaled they're willing to use real leverage if the next deal doesn't deliver what they want. That means bigger pay, better travel, better working conditions, and a bigger slice of what the league is now generating. But the problem with a holdout is simple. It only works if everyone feels the same pain at the same time. And Caitlin just made a move that reduces her pain, because her NBC role carries through the spring of 2026. So if the WNBA season happens on time, she wins. But if the season gets delayed or negotiations drag, she still wins. That's why people are reacting. Not because how dare she, but because it exposes a reality that's been building for a long time. Some players are tied to the WNBA calendar, but Caitlin is building a career that can survive without it. Now let's talk about what NBC actually did, because the details are what make this feel like a statement. NBC is launching Basketball Night in America. They're modeling it like a major event broadcast, the way they build big nights in football, and they're not hiding Caitlin in a side segment. Her debut is scheduled for February 1st before Lakers vs. Knicks at Madison Square Garden. That is one of the biggest stages you can possibly choose. And she's back March 9th for Thunder vs. Knicks. Again, primetime matchups, big markets, and a broadcast designed to travel on social media.
Announced on Tuesday that Caitlin Clark will join NBC Sports to serve as a special contributor for its new Basketball Night in America program. Caitlin Clark will make her debut as a TV analyst on February 1st, preceding the Lakers vs. Knicks game at Madison Square Garden, per a release from NBC. Wow. So this would be akin to, they have Sunday Night Football, and it starts with a pregame show called Football Night in America.
That's not a trial run. That's NBC saying, we are putting her in front of the entire basketball audience. And look at the desk they're giving her. Maria Taylor, Carmelo Anthony, Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady, Reggie Miller. That's a credibility wall. That's NBC saying Caitlin belongs in the same conversation as the game's most recognizable voices. Therefore, this isn't just about Caitlin getting another job. This is about NBC staking a claim in the future of basketball coverage.
here we are. It will be Caitlin Clark's first time in an analyst-type role on TV. That's per Chloe Peterson. She will return to the broadcast table on March 9 for a game between Oklahoma City Thunder and the Knicks. Caitlin Clark joins Michael Jordan as a splashy acquisition for NBC and NBA coverage.
Now here's the part that makes WNBA players feel squeezed. When the union talks about leverage, the threat is time. If the season gets interrupted, players lose paychecks, they lose rhythm, they lose visibility, they lose momentum. But Caitlin's move creates a different reality. She can stay visible in the biggest basketball ecosystem in America, even if the WNBA gets messy. So while some players look at the next CBA and see risk, Caitlin looks at the same window and sees a runway. And I want to be very clear. I'm not saying Caitlin is trying to undermine the union. I'm saying her personal incentives are now different because her income and spotlight are not dependent on the WNBA schedule. That difference matters during a labor fight because owners pay attention to who can hold their breath the longest. Networks pay attention to who can keep audiences engaged, and sponsors pay attention to who can guarantee visibility. Therefore, Caitlin's NBC role becomes leverage without her even saying a word. Now add the timing. Her 2025 season ended early due to injury in July, and if the WNBA season starts in May, you're looking at a long gap. A lot of players would use that gap to train, recover, and hope the league takes care of the rest. But Caitlin is filling that gap with three things: media, national team commitments, and brand work. So when people say WNBA players explode, what they're really describing is the fear of falling behind. Because in a star-driven league, visibility becomes currency. And Caitlin just locked in a currency printer that runs even if the WNBA pauses. Now here's where the story gets sharper. NBC didn't describe Caitlin as a star of women's basketball. They described her as one of the most captivating players and dynamic scorers in basketball. Basketball, not women's basketball. Basketball, that's the line. And if you understand how networks think, you know why that line is nuclear. It's not just praise, it's positioning. It tells you NBC is not trying to keep Caitlin in a separate category. They're trying to move her into the mainstream basketball conversation beside NBA storylines, NBA debates, and NBA audiences. That is bigger than the WNBA. And that creates two reactions at the same time. Fans see it and think, finally, this is what should have happened. But players see it and think, wait, if the spotlight can move that fast for one person, what does that mean for the rest of us? Because the union's argument is collective value, but the market rewards individual gravity, and Caitlin has gravity. So when the CBA negotiations heat up, owners are going to make a quiet argument. They're going to say, the league is growing, but the growth is concentrated. They'll point to ratings spikes, ticket demand, sponsor interest, and social engagement around a small number of names. And Caitlin will be the center of that story, whether she wants to be or not. That's why this move is not just cool, it's strategic. It gives Caitlin options. It gives NBC a bridge between NBA coverage and WNBA coverage. But it also exposes the uncomfortable question the league has been avoiding. Is the WNBA trying to build an equal system, or is it becoming a star economy? Because if it's a star economy, players will fight harder for revenue share. But if it's an equal system, the league has to protect the collective, even when one person is clearly driving the most attention. And that contradiction is exactly what sets off friction. Now let me give you the real takeaway. If you're trying to predict whether the 2026 season is in danger, you don't need rumors. You need three signals. Signal 1. Watch the union's language. If they move from general frustration to specific timelines, specific demands, and actual vote talk, that's when it gets real. Signal 2. Watch the owner's concessions, not public statements, real changes, travel upgrades, roster expansion, revenue share movement. If you don't see tangible movement, the temperature rises. Signal 3, watch hedge behavior. When stars lock in outside platforms during the danger window, it tells you the industry is preparing for disruption. And when broadcasters build programming that can keep fans engaged, even if the WNBA calendar becomes uncertain, that tells you they're pricing in risk. Therefore, Caitlin joining NBC isn't just a headline, it's a signal. a signal that the biggest star in the league is building a career that doesn't rely on the league's stability. And that reality will force the WNBA to decide what it wants to be: a league that protects the collective, or a league that rides its stars. Because you can't do both forever. So here's the question: is Caitlyn's NBC move smart protection in a messy CBA year? Or is it the first domino that exposes how divided the money and leverage really are? If you're still watching, drop NBC panel in the comments.